Renege once the job's done? Prepare for your just desserts. A few years after I started my business, I was asked to clean up and optimize a number of PCs in multiple locations, as well as set up some forms and templates for a new client who owned a local restaurant. The work, all labor apart from a little travel, was performed over the space of a month due to scheduling conflicts and school holidays, but on completing the last of it, the client confirmed verbally that he was happy with all I'd done, and to go ahead and send an invoice. I duly emailed an invoice for a sum just in excess of £400. I waited for payment, never heard anything, sent reminder emails, called and left messages, but no response. Eventually, a couple of busy months had passed and I met the client by chance in the local supermarket. On asking why he'd not paid or been in touch, he said that all the PCs were as bad as they had been before I'd started, and that he had tried to contact me with no success, as my landline and mobile phone had caller display as well as answering services, and there had been no emails. I knew the latter was BS, and as any PC user knows, a system can easily go back to pot if the user bad habits don't change. So I contacted a local debt collector, gave him the details, printouts of my call logs and post-invoicing emails, and he took them to the restaurateur. On his return, his words were, "He's not disputing the invoice. He's saying that the work wasn't done right, so it's his word against yours." I queried if it was worth taking the guy to small claims, to which the debt collector said, even if you could prove he confirmed he was satisfied with the work, they might insist you get his computers back to their pre-invoice state again. Do you really want to spend more time doing that? Of course the answer was no. So I stewed it over in my mind and came up with a plan. At this point it was late November, so creating 2 throwaway email accounts in female names, I got in touch with the restaurant to book a large party for Valentine's night the following February. I put it down as my husband's surprise 40th birthday party. Confirmed that my husband's sister, and CC'd her in the message with the other throwaway, couldn't make the journey north, but would happily pay the £10 per head deposit as her share towards the night. Of course, as time went on, the ideas grew arms and legs. The numbers attending increased, until the owner suggested he'd reserve the whole restaurant for the evening, and they'd happily arrange the seating to suit us. But could I ensure the deposit was sorted ASAP, please? Of course I confirmed that the sister was a scatterbrain and that I'd ensure the check was with him very soon. He emailed the sister using the CC address and she confirmed it had been posted. To keep him on side, I asked for a proposed menu in advance so that I could send it to all the attendees for pre-ordering. Naturally, they were delighted that they'd know this, as it makes their life much easier. Consequently, the numbers for all 3 courses were emailed in, with a few fussy eater variables thrown in for good measure. Needless to say, by the beginning of February, he was getting quite antsy about there being no sign of the deposit, but I reassured him that the sister's check must have been lost in the post, so she'd send another by special delivery, if they could ensure someone was there to sign for it. I knew the owner lived about 25 miles away, and the restaurant didn't open till 5 p.m. So he'd have to come in very early and hang around waiting for it. A week before D-Day, and he'd obviously had enough. He emailed in a spat saying they'd turned away numerous inquiries, had no deposit, and could no longer hold back on taking other bookings. This time I didn't bother replying. My part was done. My wife, at the time, and I were booked in at another restaurant close by for our own Valentine's meal. After which we took a walk past the restaurateur's business premises to see just 2 cars in their parking lot, one of which was his. I'm not sure how much he must have lost out on that night. But knowing his prices, I'd bet it was significantly more than the £400 plus I'd invoiced him. Of course, lessons were learned by me too. Get written or emailed confirmation of job satisfaction, for one. And not letting new clients go unbilled for too long was another. Naturally, I had no hesitation letting all and sundry know how he'd behaved either. So he was blacklisted, or forced to pay up front for any work, by IT and other professionals I knew locally. Edit. Many thanks for the awards and comments, all you lovely Redditors. Smile. Brilliant hand you've dealt here, op. Unfortunate you were never able to collect, but I do appreciate the likes of people like the restaurateur getting their just desserts. I'd have gone into the restaurant and asked if they had any room for a walk-in. Isn't there some kind of due date until the customer can officially claim that work wasn't done correctly in your country and show proof of that? Brilliant. I have a friend who does computer work and he resorts to putting Easter eggs on computers so that if they don't pay up, basically whatever he installed refuses to function. Of course, he then gets a call from the aggrieved client, at which point he can mention about the oversight of no payment. Invariably they get the message and pay up, then he miraculously releases the program and everybody is happy. By the way, no idea if this is legal or not, but it works. I just wish I could do the same for people that I've done work for over the years that still owe me money. Okay, sign. I loved this. It was perfect revenge. Dude got hit where it hurts most, probably their biggest dollar night of the year. Down the drain. Even though op never got paid in dollars. The pure satisfaction of this was probably worth it. Salve for the wounded. At least there was one dessert served in the restaurant that night. Update for spelling, Renege, right. Smiley face. I see it misspelled often. I would have been so tempted to walk past, tap on the window and wave at the prick. Very nicely done, op. And the lesson learned. Always get acceptance of job well done in writing. In person if possible. IDK if you can do this in the EU, but here in the US we would just take the equipment back if there was no payment. Obviously, we would still lose out on labor, but would at least recover the equipment, and our POS dealers would usually let us resell the license for a smaller fee to reassign it. Usually would have it written as, if X amount is not paid by X date, party X loses rights to equipment, or something like that. Sadly, I have done this a couple of times. Oh, before anyone jumps at me, let me say the owner of that company was a piece of shit and wouldn't surprise me if it wasn't 100% legal. Do what ya gotta for a paycheck sometimes, I guess. Glad I don't work in POS anymore. Out of interest, was this work done more than 6 years ago? Because if you wanted to, you could still sue him for that money. Plus late payment interest. You wouldn't have to put the computers back in the state they were in before either. He verbally accepted the work was done. That's why anything I get with a phone call I reply back with a recap and somewhere in there stating, per our phone call. If they don't dispute it, then and there it is court-affirmed proof of acknowledgement and agreement. The conversation was what I say it was. If they do dispute, I itemize and recap and ask if I missed anything. It's my own little CYA trick. I gotta be honest. That's proper revenge, but you really shit on the innocent servers of that restaurant, unfortunately. I feel bad for them. You were made of stronger stuff than I. I would not have been able to resist going in that night to rub it in his face. Wow. It sure is empty in here. It's almost like an entire restaurant-sized group decided not to show. What the hell are you going on about? I'm just here to remind you that it's always in your best interest to pay your invoices. These things have a way of coming around to you. So I contacted a local debt collector. Gave him the details. Printouts of my call logs and post-invoicing emails. And he took them to the restaurateur. On his return his words were, he's not disputing the invoice. He's saying that the work wasn't done right, so it's his word against yours. I queried if it was worth taking the guy to small claims. To which the debt collector said, even if you could prove he confirmed he was satisfied with the work, they might insist you get his computers back to their pre-invoice state again. Do you really want to spend more time doing that? Quote, in the US, once it's been demonstrated that you did indeed service the computers, he'd be on the hook for it unless he can prove that you didn't do your job properly. Are you still using them as you got them from him? Quote, i.e., whatever changes you made, etc. If so, then you need to pay the bill. Get it in front of Judge Judy and his ass would have been ripped apart for his bullshit. Oh, and I totally think you should find a way to run into him, and just casually mention that it was you that did that fake group reservation on him. I'm sure by now it's too late for him to do anything about it. And he'd have a hell of a time proving it. But would let him know why it happened. So that he realizes that he fucked with the wrong guy when he did that shit to you. Valentine's Day can be the best day of the year for restaurants. It was significantly more than £400. Just gave you silver 'cause felt like this deserved it. You and your wife should have dined there for your Valentine's date. You are a nasty, conniving, dirty SOB. I like you, also brilliant. You should have walked into the restaurant and said, why do you not have anybody here? Did some party not show up or something? Quote.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epic Haircast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.